Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
It's going to eat Evan up inside that in the interview with Draper, we opened by talking about golf. Like, that is, if you gave Evan any topic in the world to open an interview with, that would be his, and he would have been in his element. I mean, I don't feel bad for him. He's on vacation golfing some of the nicest courses on the continent. But that's, if Evan ever listened back to episodes, that would devastate him.
Well, the good news is he'll never know.
He'll never know. That's right.
He'll never know.
Yeah.
What's ignorance is bliss.
It sure is. Is Evan ever an example of that? Wow. The moment he's not on an episode, it takes us 0 seconds just to start going at him.
Oh yeah,
this is why he's the most well-liked one, and we are generally hated.
Yeah, no, it's us trying to bring him down to our level, which actually does the opposite.
Yeah. Well, we'll never change our ways. Folks, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
And I'm Evan.
And that's Brad Crisco. Evan is currently away. This is a very, very special episode of the podcast. This has been an interview that's been in the works for quite some time. Credit to Brad, who got things going on this, and one that we've been really excited to bring you. I know we've been hinting at it forever. You'll understand why it took so long to put together, and scheduling was difficult because Kris Draper has been a little bit busy lately.
Something happened?
A few things, yeah. I think his world has been a little bit tumultuous of late. So Kris was kind enough to take some of his time and sit down with the Winged Wheel Podcast and give what we think is one of our favorite and best interviews this show has ever seen. So you'll understand why this was such a big deal for us, and we hope that you really, really enjoy this interview with Kris Draper. For the first time ever, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, Kris Draper, 4-time Stanley Cup champion, Red Wings legend, and director of amateur scouting for the Detroit Red Wings. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity and the nice introduction.
Oh, yeah. I rehearsed that for quite some time. I don't have Brad and Evan here with me today, so I have to do all the intros and the questions. So apologies to the listeners. You don't have the sultry sounds of Evan. I understand that you have a Twilight golf game tonight, yeah?
I do. Yeah. Obviously you guys are, getting the same weather we are, and, you have that window of when you're going to go out and golf. So it's for me here, it's a perfect time to do it. Going out at 6:30, 7 o'clock, I can still get 9 holes in, and the course is wide open, which I like. So some days I get 9, some days I get up to 11 or 12, depending on how I'm playing, and go from there. So I look forward to some dust golf for sure.
Yeah, Evan's going to be devastated to have missed the conversation, but he can appreciate a good Twilight game.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's get right into it. Kris, you've had a pretty crazy few weeks here. Actually, it's been more than a few weeks now, starting with the lead up to the draft, development camp, and then free agency. What's your world been like? And I hope you've had some time to settle down now.
You know what? Yeah, the last couple of weeks have been all right. Pretty well. It seemed right when, kind of into June, it was obviously busy, just kind of, really kind of checking everything that I've done, for the entire scouting season, going back, reading reports, watching video, discussions with obviously prospects. We went into, the combine this year in Buffalo that we haven't been able to do the last couple of years, so you have that, and then from there it's, you come back and, you kind of, you keep going over that list and you keep going over video, and then obviously getting into Montreal, which is a real exciting time and preparation for the draft and ready to go from there. I thought, I really felt, good about our couple days that we had on draft day in Montreal, and we actually came back Friday night after the draft, and then Saturday we had all our prospects in over the last 3 years, which was really nice. Some of them I hadn't even had an opportunity to meet, as crazy as that sounds, over the last couple of years. But brought them all in. Steve addressed all our prospects. Danny Cleary, who's in charge of player development, ran an incredible development camp for us, on and off the ice. And it was, an opportunity for all these young prospects to really see what the end game is. And that is to get into Little Caesars Arena and be a part of the Detroit Red Wings. And it was great, on and off the ice. We just, it was a lot of information, a lot of education for them. We kind of brought in, obviously they were training with our strength and conditioning coach. Our medical team was there. Trainers were there. Our nutritionalists were there. I mean, you name it. We had yoga, we had vision training. We just had a ton of stuff, for all these prospects, just to, really for them to kind of say, this is the goal. This is where you want to be. This is the treatment that you want to get. And then I must admit, probably the most important guy that was there was our chef. And these guys ate like absolute champs for about 5 or 6 days. It's unreal, the setup down there for these prospects and the meals that they get. So it was a great opportunity for them. To come into Little Caesars Arena, see the dressing room, see the workout room, see the practice facility. They were able to see, obviously, the main rink. Incredible 5-6 days for these prospects. And it was, like I said, Dan Cleary did a tremendous job with these guys.
It's easy to forget that these are kids by and large, or, they're coming in 17, 18 years old. Were there any moments when you or Danny or Steve Yzerman were addressing the room where you kind of saw starstruck young men in there who were just kind of wowed by what environment they were in?
I think it's obviously it's pretty special and a great opportunity here. Steve Yzerman to address prospects. And you can kind of tell right off the hop the passion that, he has for the Detroit Red Wings and obviously the passion to get better. So, I mean, these kids are, it's a cliche, but, they're only human. You have Steve Yzerman up there, addressing them. And I got to think that, they're kind of getting, the chills and obviously the excitement of, I can't wait to get on the ice after hearing Stevie talk. And, and then, then you get Dan Cleary that gets up there. And, Dan Clears has he has a tremendous story. Like when you think about it, he was, basically a high-end prodigy coming into his draft year. He ended up getting drafted to Chicago. Obviously things, right off, didn't really turn out exactly how he expected, early in his career. And then you credit Dan Cleary for finding a way, to coming in and making the Detroit Red Wings. He came in on a tryout. And, that's something that, obviously is pretty cool. You have a first round pick. I think he went 10th or 11th to Chicago, so you have a first round pick that things didn't really go, his way. And then, with obviously the off ice training that he did, he made an unreal commitment, to training on and off the ice. He had a huge summer. He comes to the Detroit Red Wings. He makes the team as a tryout, and when we won the Cup in 2008, I mean, he was on the ice, the last 30 seconds of when we were up, and the role that he played, for us and the 2 Stanley Cup runs in 2008 when we won, and 2009 when we lost in Game 7. Dan Cleary played with everyone, played in every situation. He was on the power play, he was on the penalty kill, and it's a great story for these young prospects to hear. It's so it doesn't matter if you're a first round name, a top 10 pick, or if you're a 7th rounder. There's ways to make it into the NHL. And when you have Dan Cleary sitting there and addressing you and talking to you, use him as a resource because he's been there, he's done that, and he's been through it all.
I have some draft questions. I have to admit there's some poetry to, and I'm not sure how you feel about the nickname, but the $1 man talking about someone who came from the other end of the spectrum with the high end draft pick. And both of you kind of did the same thing, coming into the team and really earning your way on and having a massive impact for multiple Cup wins.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I think that's a great story as well. I was originally drafted by the Winnipeg Jets in the 3rd round. And, at the time I was considered, a top prospect in the Winnipeg Jets organization. And, things didn't work out. It was, it was unfortunate. It was at the time, I was devastated that, I wasn't at 2021, a regular within the Winnipeg Jets or playing in the NHL. That was my dream. I was playing, in Moncton for the Moncton Hawks. And, in 1993 on draft day, I ended up getting traded from the Winnipeg Jets to the Detroit Red Wings for good old Freddie Charles, future considerations. And, it ended up being a great story. When January 24th, 1994, when I got called up and played my first game with the Detroit Red Wings against the Chicago Blackhawks, the trade hadn't been finalized yet, and it ended up, being a monetary trade. I'm not quite sure how the $1 ever kind of came about. I think back then there was like 15 rounds. Like, you'd think I'd be worth a 15th round pick or something like that. But I guess Mike Smith from Winnipeg at the time felt, you know what, give me $1 and we'll call it a deal. And, I obviously it's incredible how, it worked out, for me. But it was just, that summer, something switched. There was a switch that just flipped. And I knew that, I wasn't the most skilled guy. I wasn't, the biggest guy, but I could always skate. And the one thing I could do is just, I wanted to be in incredible shape, and I wanted to go in and I wanted to skate, and I wanted to kind of make a name for myself. And I ended up starting the year in Adirondack, and I got called up. And like I said, from the day I got called up, January 24th was my first game with the Detroit Red Wings until I, retired in 2011. I never saw the American Hockey League again or the minors. So there are some good stories, and, that's what we tell these prospects to, and I've always, told them this after we've drafted them. If there's anything, I could ever do, please don't hesitate to call. I want these prospects to have, the same opportunity and the same chance to play, in the National Hockey League. They all dream it, and, you got to chase it, and it's going to be hard, but it's definitely worth it. So within our organization, we have a lot of guys that played a lot of hockey for the Detroit Red Wings. And, we want to be resources for all these prospects over the next couple of years to give them every opportunity they can, to be a Detroit Red Wing and play in the National Hockey League.
I want to jump over to the most recent draft we just had, Kris. Marco Kasper at 8th overall. Talk to us a little bit about how that pick kind of came about, what the team sees in Marco Kasper, and were you surprised even to see him there to fall at 8th, to have a center of that caliber at that position?
Come draft day, you just don't know what's going to happen. And, for us, that's the importance of having our list the way that we want our list. And then I had a, great opportunity this year to see Marco play, a ton, obviously playing over in Rogla. I had a couple trips before Christmas. I saw him at the World Juniors, went back over there for some playoff hockey during the U18 World Championships. So I was able to get in and watch him play some playoff hockey. And then at the end at the World Championships against the men in Finland. And, first of all, it's up to us to gather as much information about a prospect as possible. Over in Sweden, we obviously have Håkan Andersson and Thomas Carlson, and those guys did, a tremendous amount of background check on Marco, and everything just came back. People just raved about him, whether he was playing the J20, whether he was playing on the SHL team. We really loved his drive. We really loved his character and his competitiveness. Those are things that, mean a lot to the Detroit Red Wings. We want to bring those type of players in. So, and obviously, like you touched upon the position, the opportunity, to bring a centerman in was something that we wanted to do. So, when the Detroit Red Wings were on the clock in Montreal and we had an opportunity to go up on stage, we were very excited to add Marco to our prospect pool and obviously to the Detroit Red Wing organization.
This is a question that I know Kris has received about 45 times, and I'm sure you close to it, but how much does position come into play when you're making your lists? The Red Wings obviously had a top 6 center question to answer, which you did with Marco Kasper, but leading into it, did a potential centerman get an edge over a guy who you maybe thought was equal caliber, but was closer to being a winger?
You know what? I'll honestly say this year, kind of how the way we looked at it, we felt we were going to come away with a centerman, in this year's draft. I think when you're sitting there and you're making the list and you're looking what you had. I mean, obviously it was something that we all knew, we needed and wanted, to draft a center, but we didn't want to just draft a center to draft a center. We need to get important pieces, for the Detroit Red Wings that are going to come and make our team better, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years down the road. So, really, obviously, when you have an opportunity to, draft, someone that plays that position, obviously you get excited about it, but not to the fact of, sacrificing, what you might consider or we might consider a better prospect. At the time you look at it, you put the list together, and like I said, in the end, we were able to select, a centerman, which we needed. We talked about that. And then obviously more importantly, a player like Marco Kasper.
And this is one that's coming from Brad, one of the other hosts. How do the lists come together? Because obviously there's the, what exists in the public sphere where they rank every prospect humanly available, which I'm sure you guys don't have all the same thing, thousands of players long. But how do your lists come together, and how do they differ from what might be available for the public to see?
Oh, there's mock drafts out there. I didn't realize that. Is there? Yeah.
One or two.
You know what? Obviously, the importance for us is, we go out, and travel, travel the world, travel every league, and watch players. And, in the end, you start, as you kind of get towards, the second half, you kind of start, it seems that some prospects, kind of distance themselves from other groups, that we consider when we sit there watching it. So in the end, it's honestly, you sit there. I'm director of amateur scouting. Håkan Andersson is director of European scouting. Jesse Wallen's a chief amateur scout. And then obviously we have, Steve Yzerman as well. And it's, it's a matter of having constructive dialogue, and you just sit there and we talk about it. We talk about the prospect, we talk about the background, we talk about the potential of the prospect. And then from there, you just kind of start putting the order, in place. So it's basically, I'm next, so the Hlinka Gretzky starts up, the 31st in Red Deer, Alberta. I'm heading out there on Saturday, and, here we are on to the 05, draft class, and the work starts, right now. Some guys I might be able to see at World Juniors too, a couple weeks later in Edmonton, and you go out there and really from in a normal year, you get to watch, all these underages play. I would have seen them last year. So you have a little bit of a read on them. And then, going into this year, we have a good idea of obviously, some top end names, and then you just sit there and watch, and it's a matter of, just kind of grinding out, names and grinding out lists and talk and communication. And like I said, it's something that's, very constructive for us. And in the end, we put a list together that the organization agrees on.
So the second round this year was really interesting, I felt, because it looked like Detroit took two players, I don't want to say from opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're pretty kind of distinctly different. Dylan James being a really hard-nosed, works his tail off every shift kind of player. And not to say Dmitry Beshelnikov doesn't, but he is kind of this under-the-radar, insanely talented guy out of Russia. Walk us through those picks and what you're expecting from both James and Beshelnikov.
You know what, Dylan James, he had himself obviously a tremendous year, playing in the USHL, which is it's a really hard league to score in. And he obviously put up some pretty good numbers this year, which is impressive. Every time, we went in and watched him, whether it was at home or on the road, it was he just seemed to play the game the right way. He understands how to play the game. He's very responsible in his own end. He's a good skater. He's strong down low. And then kind of going back and watching a lot of goals that he scored this year. He was scoring the goals, in what you would call the hard areas or the right areas. And that was something that, really stood out with our staff. And, it's interesting in the playoffs, you kind of watch the goals that he scored, and then almost as important, the time of the game when he scored them. There was a lot of goals that he scored that were either game tying goals or game winning goals, which is obviously impressive, come playoff time. So, a player like Dylan James, he was very important to his team on both sides of the puck. He played power play, he played penalty kill. when they needed a goal, he was on the ice. When they were protecting a lead, he was on the ice, and he just seemed to have that knack of doing things the right way. And he actually just got invited to Team Canada's World Junior Camp, which is obviously, a credit to the season that he had. So he found out about it actually at our development camp, which was pretty cool. So, he's just he was shaking his head, here I am, and, being drafted by the Detroit Red Wings. I'm, in the Detroit Red Wings locker room, and I get a call from Hockey Canada that, I get an opportunity to go to the World Junior Camp. So it was obviously a lot of good things that, have happened to him over, the year. And then obviously from when the season ended. And, in the end, we like his path. He's going to North Dakota. We talked to him about that. He's really excited about playing in that program. Obviously, North Dakota has done, a real good job developing hockey players. So, that's something that we liked as well. With Dmitry Buchelnikov, obviously, under the circumstances this year, I wasn't able to see him live. A lot of contact with our Russian scout, Nikolai Vakarov, talking to him. And it's the same thing in any area. Our scouts are expected to gather a lot of information, and all the information that was coming back was really positive about Dmitry, his work ethic, on and off the ice. And then, obviously you watch him play in video, and you go back and you watch his points and his goals and his assists. He's, obviously he's very skilled. He has good hockey sense. The kid can really shoot the puck, and we really liked, the way he competed. It seemed like he was a player that, worked really hard to get the puck back. He's one of those players that, he wants the puck on his stick, and, just a real smart, savvy, skilled prospect that we feel that, same thing that we added to our prospect pool.
Talking about the lost year, so to speak, for scouting because of the pandemic, especially depending on the league that players played in, do you feel that players like Amadeus Lombardi are almost, found opportunity or a really big find for you in the fourth round, where you might have felt with his talent he might have gone higher had he not missed that year of hockey?
I hope you're right. He was, Amadeus he had himself a very good year. And it's interesting. You go, I have some friends that, that coach in that league, and, they kept bringing, his name up, and I just kind of, shrugged my shoulders and kind of downplayed, what he was doing or how he was playing. But, to your point, at 16, 17 years old, losing, a whole year of hockey. And even at the time, I don't have to tell you, in Ontario, gyms weren't even open, so you really had to get, creative. You really had to kind of think outside the box of what you're going to do. That's such a important year of development. Here we are talking about the importance, of developing, and literally for a year, things were shut down for a lot of the OHL hockey players. And it was obviously really hard for him, but Flint had, it had obviously a really good season. Very lucky that Flint's, about 45 minutes from my house. A lot of opportunities go up to go up there and watch him play. And, the one thing, I just felt, and our Ontario scout, Kelly Harper, we just kind of felt, every time I walked away, from a Flint game, Amadeus just seemed to get better. And, that was something that, that really hit home with us. So he, at the time, you're sitting there and, we're looking at lists, and we have, names from the West, the Q, from Ontario, over in Europe, whatever. This was a player that we really wanted to add. And, he had a good development camp. I think he opened up, a lot of eyes, for us, and just he was a quiet kid. I think, talking about, when Steve Yzerman is addressing someone, I think he was probably as nervous as anybody, from where he's come from. And, now here he is, being drafted by the Detroit Red Wings in the Detroit Red Wing locker room, and having an opportunity to talk to Steve Yzerman is obviously pretty special. So we're excited, to be able to get him. He was like a sponge. at development camp. He just kind of wanted to take everything in. And it was fun to watch him. He, obviously had, the Michigan goal in the 3-on-3. He had a lot of fun with that. And he's a player that, we're going to be able to get a lot of touches on over the next couple of years because of how close he is, to us. And, it's obviously going to be a huge benefit for him. And just as important, a huge benefit for us to have him 45 minutes down north on 75.
We try to stay objective on this podcast, Kris. Obviously, we're happy you're here, but I got to say one point of criticism. Wish you would have done the Rock Me Amadeus. That was your opportunity.
I thought about it. I must admit, I did think about it. Kind of brought it up in the interview post, and then the post draft interviews, and then there was some beautiful Instagram and obviously Twitter stuff that went on with Rock Me Amadeus. So it was pretty unique to add an Amadeus and a Maximilian. So it's not every day that you get to bring those guys into your organization.
Yeah, good draft class if for just names alone. Speaking of big names, Moritz Seider, besides being an exercise in proving everyone in the hockey world, a hockey media sphere wrong, who saw Moritz Seider first, and was there any kind of pounding the table for him from someone or a group of scouts, or was that just not necessary? Was it obvious from the beginning that he was going to be the guy for you at 6 overall?
You know what? We saw him, ironically enough, my son played at St. Andrews College, and St. Andrews College every other year goes over and plays in Mannheim in a tournament in Germany. And I had talked to the St. Andrews College coach, David Manning, who actually, brought his name up. And then from there, obviously, you kind of start as the draft kind of starts going on, the draft year starts going on, you start hearing his name. And I'd never been to a DEL game before. And I had an opportunity to go over there, and absolutely incredible environment. They are so fun to go watch. It's incredible. They stand, they sing, they drink, they eat. It's an absolute blast of how they enjoy, watching hockey. And I just remember going over there, you have a 6'4" right shot D-man, that moves pretty good, that showed good hockey sense, with the puck. His poise was really good. But there were nights where he didn't play a ton. And, sometimes that's hard. You go all the way over there and you watch, you might get, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever it might be. And there were some nights where it was frustrating. And, as trying to do my job or our jobs, you want to go over there and you want to watch this kid play, 20, 22, 24 minutes a night, but that didn't happen. So we kind of, between, Hawk and Anderson, our Western European scout, Vladdy Havlui, started going over there. He just continued to, it seemed like his game was really maturing. And then it was kind of the same situation at the U18 World Championships. I went in and watched a couple playoff games of Mo's, and the one game I actually got very lucky. One of the D-men, was injured and didn't play. It was early in the game, and Mo basically got a regular shift. And it just, in a playoff atmosphere on the road, in a tough environment, it was great to see the way that he handled, himself, and he handled that situation. Showed a lot of poise, from a 17-year-old kid playing in, obviously a very competitive game. And then from there, he had an opportunity to play at the World Championships too. So between, Stevie obviously going to see him, Vladdy, Hawken, myself, Pat Verbeek went over to the World Championships, going to watch him, as well at the time, as we're discussing, players that we felt that we wanted to pick. And, we ended up getting an opportunity to get a right shot 6'4" D-man. And, obviously, the year that he had last year was, it was unreal. Right from the get-go, I feel, and I think our organization agrees, we felt that, during, the pandemic, the opportunity to for him to have some stability to play over in Sweden and Rögle was massive for his development. He took obviously, such big steps over there. And then he comes in and he makes our team, right away, and, plays every single game for us and goes on to win the Calder, which is, incredible for our organization. So, when we saw Mo as a 17, 18-year-old, we really liked what we saw. But for me, I'll be honest, I think he's matured and turned into, a way better player, way faster than what I expected. And it's a credit to him. It's a credit to, the way he's wired. It's a credit, to his preparation. It was a credit this year to be able to come in and face the wear and tear of playing 82 games and playing against the other team's top lines, every single game. And he just seemed to embrace that. And it was something that was a lot of fun to watch. And, we know going forward, we got, a massive piece of the puzzle for the Detroit Red Wings with not only the type of player that he is, but the incredible character that Moritz Seider has. And, that's something that, has been great for us. So very fortunate to be able to get him. And obviously even more fortunate to watch him develop, into this player. And, the one thing that, what the grades do is it's every year. They just, he obviously had a great rookie year, and now the expectations are, from him on himself and obviously from us that he's going to continue to do it year in and year out. And that's what makes players great.
I know it was, you weren't director of amateur scouting yet, but that was Steve Yzerman's first draft as GM. He hadn't come in too long before that. Was there any moment of, oh shit? Because obviously that was a surprise. I'm sure you heard the gasp on the draft floor. Surprised quite a few people. Was there any moment where you thought, we couldn't manage to trade back? We know Ken Holland is looking at him for Edmonton, just a few picks behind or right after us. Was there kind of a we're about to do this thought in your head?
Not really. You know what? That's the, obviously Tyler Wright was at the time director of amateur scouting. And, I think, when you sit there and you discuss it and you look at the opportunity of what we were bringing in, and, when you kind of sit there and talk about it, it just kind of all made sense. I think, how many, you see what championship teams do, and obviously they're, incredible back end. I was fortunate to play with, some of the greatest defensemen on the back end, and you need those pieces. You need those players. And, when you sit there and you start talking about it and you start debating it, the opportunity to bring in a 6'4" right shot D-man, really made sense for our organization at the time.
So fast forward to the year where you took Sebastian Cossa. Did you and the team know in advance that Ken Holland was planning on taking Cossa if you didn't move up? So basically, was that an at the table decision, or did you have that kind of planned in advance?
You know what? It's I think at the time, we obviously had a lot of picks, and I think you're sitting there and just kind of you're not sure. If he's going to be there. So at the time, the move, just made sense for us. We wanted to come out with, you had, two goalies that kind of separated themselves in Cossa and Wallstedt. So that at the time, it was a decision that, we felt we wanted to step up and add, Sebastian, to the prospect pool. So it was just something at the time that we made sense. We didn't know what Kenny was doing. Obviously that was something that, would never be discussed, or asked. And it's, in the end, for the Detroit Red Wings. And at the time, it was something that, like I said, we just felt, that we wanted to do and make sure that we didn't miss out, on, one of those goalies.
All right. So rounding out on the draft here for now, with the rise of analytics in hockey, obviously that has seeped into the territory of prospecting. It's not just NHL players. They're looking at prospects from across the hockey world. How much does the world of analytics inform on, yours and your team's decision making? And how does it kind of tie in with the, quote unquote eye test for you?
We're lucky. We have a nice analytics department. Brian Campbell does, an incredible job for us. And, probably about once a month I'm in, communication with him, just kind of talking, what are you seeing on your side? And it's actually, for me, it's very interesting and very intriguing to have those conversations, about, the analytics, of the game, I'm always trying, obviously played hockey for 20 years and I've been in the front office now for almost 11 years now. And, really just trying to expand, myself, trying to learn as much as possible. Obviously I enjoy going into rinks. I enjoy, watching the games and obviously, talking hockey and debating within our organization, prospects and what we've seen. And then on the analytics side, I always find it, interesting and intriguing to have those conversations as well. So I would say that, it's a big part of it, but obviously for me, the way that, I've kind of, played the game and I've kind of, brought into the scouting world, it is the eye test. It's trust your gut, trust your instincts. And, I just completed my third draft, which is, I think, the more you do this job, the more confident you get in it to make those decisions. But, it's always interesting to hear from the analytics side of it and, to have those conversations, with Brian Campbell and talk about that and talk about prospects, what I see, what he sees. And, we just kind of, and then in the end, you just kind of go from there. So, like I talked about earlier, about gathering as much information as possible on prospects and, background checks, talking, to coaches and trainers and assistant coaches and strength coaches and skating coaches. It's also helpful to talk on the analytics side as well. So, that's really what we try to do.
Talking to you and hearing about what you looked for in players, and you hark back to your experiences. And honestly, Steve Yzerman says a lot of the same things. You don't have to look much further than the multiple cup winning Tampa Bay Lightning and the teams that he won with. How much does your success as a hockey player, as an NHL player, inform on how your vision for this version of the Red Wings? How much does that factor in?
Well, time will tell, obviously, excited to have, Moritz Seider on the team and obviously Lucas Raymond on the team. And we just kind of want, every year, every couple years, prospects knocking on the door, to come in and be a part of the Detroit Red Wings. But, for me, obviously in 2002, you're never going to see a team like that again. I mean, that was obviously pre-Cap, real special team to play for and play with. But when you think about, in 08 and 09, the teams that we had, when you look at, obviously built down the middle with Pav and Z, obviously we had Val Filppula, myself, like you kind of look at, being, built through the middle. You look at the defense that we had. I mean, our top four, in Nick Lidstrom, Brian Rafalski, Brad Stewart, and Nicholas Kronwall. I mean, unbelievable top four, that we had. Those guys could play against anybody in any situation. And then from there you look at, you look at the wings and some of the players, that we had. And like we talked about, adding a Dan Cleary, adding, a Michael Samuelson, Yuri Hudler was a top draft pick who brought a lot. So I think, when you start looking at that, that's kind of how, our expectations are to try to build that team. Now, Z and Pav are, they're going into the Hall of Fame. They're absolutely, probably two of the greatest Red Wings to ever play the game. And we got pretty fortunate where we were able to get, them in the draft, but you just never know. You never know where you're going to find, that gem, that diamond in the rough. And those guys turned out, like I said, to be incredible Detroit Red Wings and future Hall of Famers. So, the way I look at it, that's, the type of team that I envision being a part of building. You want to be, hard to play against. You want to be competitive. You want to be fast. Obviously, you need star players. Those are the things that are going to win. And you just look, every year of teams that win, top six are incredible. They seem to do things every night to help their team win. Usually you're going to have a superstar defenseman. You look at obviously what Cale Makar did this year for the Colorado Avalanche. And then, then depth, is something that's really important. When you're talking about third and fourth lines, I think, it's been shown over the last, probably 3, 4, 5 years at the trade deadline, teams trying to get, those character players, those so-called grinders or role players that, know how to play the game and play in key situations. You look at Colorado, trading for Cogliano, signing Darren Helm. Like you look at, how important of a role that those guys played on penalty kill, on winning faceoffs. Both of them scored big goals for their team. So, when I sit there and I look at, how we want to build and the type of team that we want, I think that's the way you look at it is, you need center, you need depth through the middle. Obviously you want to get, wingers that, big, strong, physical, can play heavy, obviously can chip in with goals, and then the importance of the back end. And obviously for us, I was able to win Stanley Cups with, Mike Vernon, 2 with Chris Osgood and 1 with Dominik Hasek, and it's all different. Vernie ended up winning the Conn Smythe. Dom, arguably the greatest goaltender of all time, and then Chris Osgood, one of my best friends, who came back in 2008 and ended up taking over in the playoffs and going on an incredible run and being a Stanley Cup champion. And then we were 1 win away in 2009. So it's when you look at that, that's kind of the template or the print of how we want to build.
All right, going back to your playing days, before Game 7 versus Colorado in 2002. Detroit ended up scoring 6 of their first 16 shots that game, but do you remember the shot that Scotty Bowman took at you when he was giving his pregame speech?
There was a lot of those shots, so I do. And it at the time, I got to be honest with you, I was kind of zoned in on getting ready for the game. Here we were. Game 7, we were 1 win away of going into the Stanley Cup Finals. And I just remember I heard my name and I heard laughter. And, so I just kind of looked up and kind of got, a little beet red and Brett Hull sat beside me and I was like, Hully, what'd he say? And Hully just kind of shook his head and started laughing. So, a lot of fun with that. I think at the, obviously, let's be honest, we're playing the Colorado Avalanche. We had a huge 2-0 win in Game 6 to bring it back to Game 7, and there was so much riding on this one game, that if I had to be part of a joke that kind of loosened the team up, and obviously the first period that we had worked out pretty good for us, so I'm all good with that.
And for the listeners who don't know, I think the quote from Scotty was. It was about anyone being able to be a hero, even a guy with bad hands. And I think he looked at you or he said your name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, there was other guys in the room that I could have shared the bad hands with.
yeah, definitely.
But it was, what? Like I said, it was perfectly timed and well delivered by Scotty. And in the end, the way that game worked out, it was well worth it.
All right, there's going to be some obvious answers here in people's heads, but I want to hear from you, Kris. What's your most memorable moment in your career? It could be a cup. It could be obviously fight night, whatever it might be. What stands out in your head when you think about your career with the Red Wings?
So fortunate to have, so many great memories. But if I just have to pick one, I would have to say the Stanley Cup in 2008. I had my daughter and my son were there, in Pittsburgh, which was amazing to have them on the ice after the game when we won. And then I had the birth of my youngest daughter, Cameron. She was born 2 days before Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So really in the end, I was able to get a family picture of the 5 of us with the Stanley Cup. So that was something that meant a lot. And probably have to say, I know that's my number one answer, but I always have to add, just the opportunity to hand the cup to my dad, is something that was really special, for me with having, all the, the sacrifices, the commitments that, both my mom and dad did. And I just remember, he asked, can you pick it up and hand it to me? And it was something that I was able to do. And it's something that, obviously very special.
All right. This is a question coming from elsewhere, but they said it'd be a good one to ask you, Kris. Are you the most competitive SOB that you know?
Probably to a fault. Yeah. I think in the end, we talked about, getting traded for $1, the opportunity. I just wanted to play in the National Hockey League. I wanted to be a hockey player so bad. I literally every single day I burned for the game, the passion that I had for the game. I just, even to this day, absolutely, love the opportunity to watch, be around NHL players. It's something that, it meant so much to me. So, with that, you kind of get, a little cutthroat, and I think that, I ended up getting to the NHL, and probably, the hardest thing is longevity. You always you have draft picks coming in every year. You have free agents coming in every year. And the one thing that, I never wanted to happen was somebody stealing my job. And I think that was something that's kind of how I was wired. And I think that had a lot to do with, my off-ice training, the way I trained, the expectations that I put on myself in the summertime, to get ready for the grind of a season. So I'm proud of the competitiveness that I have. Sometimes do I take it a little bit too far? Yeah. But I love to compete and I love to win.
So when we get you out for a round of golf, maybe you and I should be a pairing then, just so I'm not on the bad side of you.
Yeah, I would stick close. I would stick close to me. Yes.
All right, just a couple more questions here. Unrivaled, the E60 on the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry. Have you seen it yet?
I have. Yes, I've watched it a couple times. Yeah.
I gotta say, my favorite part was at the end where, there was a lot of talk of reconciliation and happy-go-lucky with Claude Lemieux and what's in the past is in the past. But, when they cut to you and they asked you if you forgive him, you talked about, it's in the past and that is what it is, but you don't necessarily forgive him. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I've got a lot of people that enjoyed that line. I got to be honest with you. The way that it ended, I've had a lot of people say, man, we love the ending. Didn't see it coming that way, but love the ending. You know what? Honestly, there's, have I gotten over it? Absolutely. Obviously it was, at the time it was something that, sparked probably, the most hated rivalry in all of professional sports, especially through, the summer of 96 into 02. For me, it was, and you can kind of see, how it was handled on his side. So that was something that, probably, bothered me the most. But in the end, and like I said, and I've said it, in E60, I've said it every time I've been asked this question, if that was something that was needed, to rally our team and put our team over the top, then you know what, I'm fine with that. We ended up going on, we ended up trading for Brendan Shanahan, which was a huge trade for our organization, brought Shanny in, and then, we end up going on, to win 97 and then back to back in 98. So it's, if I was to see, Claude and at a rink or whatever, and we were crossing paths, it would, shake his hand and ask him how things are and that kind of stuff. And that's just kind of, that's how I feel. And when they, I gotta be honest, I didn't really see that question coming. And then it was just, I don't know, that answer just felt right. And, I stick by my answer, but in the end, the way things worked out for myself and certainly for our organization, I have no hard feelings of the way it went. The rivalry was incredible for us. I think it was incredible, for hockey fans, especially Red Wing fans. And, it was something that, I thought E60, Unrivaled was incredible to watch. To relive all that, I thought they did an amazing job on it.
All right, last one, Kris. I have to ask you, Steve Yzerman and obviously his entire team, including you, made big moves with free agency this year. Kind of caught a lot of people by surprise. What are your thoughts on the direction and how aggressively you've moved together in bringing in those free agents to improve the team, and what's your vision for the team moving forward? And then maybe where do you play into that? Does the director of amateur scouting step into that process a lot?
You know what? I was very fortunate just to be a part of it. Listen and learn. Was something. Of kind of how I was there. Obviously, for me, watching NHL players is. At home, watching games on TV or the opportunities to go down to Little Caesars Arena. But for the most part, I'm in amateur rinks the entire year. I absolutely enjoyed watching, the NHL playoffs this year. I thought it was incredible hockey. It was great to watch. So the names come up, and I am familiar with a lot of them just from watching it. But we have pro scouts that live that every day. Like I live on the amateur side every single day. So, it was just great to be a part of it, and the excitement of names that, kind of kept coming out for us, was obviously, something, that I think excited, us in the front office. And I think it was a full trickle down effect, to all Red Wings fans of the signings that Stevie was able to make. And it was, when you look at it, we added basically a second line. We were able to bring in 2D that the expectations are going to play, in our top four. Unfortunately, Pysyk had an accident, a training accident. And then we went out and signed Hagg the other day to add to depth within our back end. But I think it's exciting. And, the one thing, as you're sitting there and you're hearing, these names that, are coming to Detroit, you get excited about the fact that, that they want to come to Detroit. And, that's something that, is really important for us. And then, sometimes, as you get caught up in free agency, you kind of forget we made the trade for Ville Husso as well. So, the goaltending tandem of Husso and Nedeljkovic is exciting as well. So for me, it was just basically the opportunity to listen and learn and just kind of see how these things happen. And it was, it ended up being, a great day for the Detroit Red Wings. And we were very excited of the pieces that we were able to add to our hockey club, and felt that, before we went to bed the night before free agency, we woke up the next day and we were a much better team. And, that's exciting for us going in the direction that we want to go into. And, that's, you want to get into the playoffs eventually. You want to be part of, obviously, that top 16. And then from there, we want to become Stanley Cup contenders. And we know there's still a lot of work to do, but it was a good day for our organization.
Well, Kris, I have about 1 million more questions for you, but you have a tea time. So I have an offer to make you.
Okay.
There is one of these special Mickey Redmond style winged wheel podcast flannels with your name on it. If we can expect you back on the show at some point, maybe when your world settles down a little bit again.
Yeah, absolutely. I would enjoy it, Ryan. It's always fun to talk hockey. It's always fun to talk about passionate Detroit Red Wing hockey, and I enjoyed the opportunity today. So thank you very much for having me. And yes, we will do this again.
Awesome. Folks, Kris Draper, Director of Amateur Scouting for the Detroit Red Wings legend, 4-time Stanley Cup champion, and about to go crush a round of Twilight Golf. Kris, thanks again.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome back. That was our interview with Kris Draper. Wonderful stories, insights into the world of what it is to be a Director of Amateur Scouting, a Red Wings legend, to have this kind of feud ongoing, maybe not ongoing, but still pretty present with the Colorado Avalanche rivalry. And, again, like I said, pre-interview, we could have gone on for hours and hours longer. So we'll have to have him back on, and maybe you and Evan should join this next one.
I'll try.
Yeah. Do your best. We actually should be saying that to Evan. I think Evan was pulling his 4-iron out as I was just reading that intro. So yeah, man, Keenan Draper might have been the key to drafting Moritz Seider. That was amazing.
That's the modern day story of how they got Datsyuk.
Yeah.
Same type of vibes.
Who was it? It was St. Louis was also flying out to see Datsyuk, but they weren't
even going to see Datsyuk. It was, I can't remember who it was. It was some random journeyman defenseman, like a Henrik Talinder or something like that.
Yeah.
It might have actually been him, but someone like that. And it was just, that kid's pretty good.
Yeah. That scrawny kid is really strong and talented.
Yeah. And St. Louis's flight got canceled or snowed in or something. So it was only the Red Wings there to see them.
Yeah. I also loved how,
Dmitry Kalinin.
Yes. That's what
Dmitry Kalinin. That's who it was. I knew I was thinking of some random Sabres defenseman from 20 years ago.
Yeah. I also loved, when I asked Kris, like, did you ever have like a, wow, we are about to draft Seider way ahead of where everyone else thinks we should or are going to? And like, was there ever a moment of hesitance? And it was just, no, like the process, the insight into what a draft room's process is so wildly different as opposed to like how the public sphere works and the media sphere works for obvious reasons. Anyhow, more to come in that interview and hopefully more to come from Kris in the future. So, thank you all for tuning into that. Before we move on here, I do want to tell you that this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast is proudly brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, a sponsor that gives hockey fans what we really need, even more excitement. There are so many reasons why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. They're simple to use with great odds on different betting markets, giving you more action every game day. Plus, they're tons of fun with unique bet types like same game parlay and exclusive promos on the biggest events. And when you win, you get your winnings safely in as little as 24 hours. Now listen to this. FanDuel is letting you place your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Just place a bet on any game and FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back if you don't win that first bet. If you win, you keep the cash. If you lose, you get up to $1,000 back in site credit. Now, what we want you to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get started with that risk-free bet of up to $1,000 and be sure to sign up with promo code WWP so they know the Winged Wheel Podcast sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code WWP. You must be 21 and older and present in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, West Virginia, Indiana, Colorado, Iowa, Tennessee, Virginia, or Michigan. First online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, or Virginia, Tennessee Redline 1-800-889-9789, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-270-7117 in Michigan. All right. Minor news here for the Red Wings before we jump into to overtime. So there was the Mark Pysyk signing not too long ago. And that was, a depth signing, a guy who could play defense and was one of those players who kind of played up on wing, much like, Witkowski, Brendan Smith, other players like that. He hasn't done much of it, but depth signing. Could be waived probably pretty safely, could slot in as a 7th defenseman, 13th forward, etc. And then the Red Wings actually had another one of those. They signed Robert Hagg, 27-year-old left defenseman. Again, this isn't a world breaker. This is a depth defenseman kind of thing. Probably someone you can comfortably waive, play as your 7th defenseman, slot in if and when injuries happen. But you have to think at this point, okay, the blue line's getting pretty crowded. And not that a 7th defenseman or a guy who might end up in the AHL would ever be the catalyst to force a trade. But I was legitimately starting to think, is there a trade in the works right now where Detroit is trading like a top 4 defenseman and not getting a defenseman in return and they're just filling the hole? And I spent a little bit of time wondering about it. And then the announcement came out from the Red Wings right after the signing was announced that Detroit Red Wings defenseman Mark Pysyk, who was just signed, underwent successful surgery to repair a torn Achilles tendon. Recovery time is expected to be 4 to 6 months. Kris Draper confirmed in the interview it was just a freak training accident. Popped his Achilles, unfortunately. Pretty devastating injury and obviously not something that he or the Red Wings accounted for. So that is that signing encapsulated right there.
Yep. We've spent the last, it feels like 3 episodes just constantly repeating how important depth is for just such a problem. Happened a little earlier than we would have anticipated.
Usually camp starts at least.
Yeah. But this is the exact scenario why you need to have depth because, between Hagg and Lidstrom and when Pysyk comes back and Osterley and Kampfer, most of them aren't going to be anything special because most of them haven't been anything special for their entire careers. But what should happen between now and then is one or two of them should be surprisingly competent. And then they earn that spot because we have a fairly good idea what the Red Wings top four is going to look like. And then it's wide open beyond that.
Yeah.
And when you have 4 to 6 guys competing for those, 3 spots, if you want to count the 7th defenseman, guys need to overperform their capabilities to take those spots. So the guys who are underperforming won't get those spots. So if Robert Hagg shows up and is plainly terrible, okay, well, you've got a bunch of other options beyond him. If Robert Hagg shows up and is, dare I say, good, well, that's a phenomenal problem to have because then, you can start exploring options with the defensemen below him, whether that's waiving them, buyouts, trades, who knows. But you have the world of options. And, not that Robert Hagg is bad. He's not, but he's also definitely not anything special. Comparing Hagg and Chiarot and Mata and the other guys and Pysyk before he got in as the depth defenseman. Well, let's remember what the Red Wings defense looked like last year. These are still upgrades.
Yes.
Even though they are purely 5, 6, 7 depth defensemen, they are still upgrades from the majority of the defense the Red Wings had to parade out last year. So, when Wallman comes back, you can throw him right into that mix too, because Wallman's not guaranteed time. If Wallman gets outplayed by Hagg, well, then Hagg's going to get the ice time. If Wallman outplays, Osterley, Hagg, and Pysyk, when Pysyk comes back, then he'll get the ice time. So, this is the exact scenario why you sign a lot of depth guys, and now it's up to them to determine who plays.
Yeah, looking into Robert Hagg as well, seems like he's a guy who Yzerman wasn't signing a 7th defenseman to be a world beater. He is a guy who plays a pretty decent amount of minutes, actually, hits quite a bit and blocks a really good amount of shots. I know injuries have derailed some progress on that front of late, but yeah, he's coming in to play hard minutes if he's in. That's what he's there for. It's like you just said, Brad. Yzerman's making sure the depth is there, and he's making sure the depth isn't, all right, let's just make sure that guy doesn't go out and fail himself and the team every shift. It's to make sure that they're competent and at least, keep that MO of the team halfway present, which is make them hard to play against. If we're not going to be, the Tampa Bays, the Colorados of the NHL, let's at least be a hard team to play against. So is it sexy? Is it the world's best roster? No. Draper said in the interview, it's like there's still a long way to go in this rebuild, but it's a step and it's an improvement. And there are some very fair criticisms of contracts like Ben Chiarot's, I think, where you're like, the term based on his age and based on, his actual output, et cetera, et cetera. And you can't discredit those. But at the same time, this is something that took me a little while to come around on, even though I might not like the contract, like you said, Brad, still an improvement. And if you can't skip 5 steps, which you really can't in the NHL unless you get lucky with the lottery, or, the Red Wings really did get lucky with Moritz Seider, you kind of have to take those iterative steps, and sometimes it costs a little more, sometimes it costs a little less.
Yeah, you got to treat depth players almost like draft picks. You're going to have more misses than hits, so the more kicks at the can you have, the more likely you are to get some hits. Yeah. If Robert Hagg comes in and rediscovers his game that made him I think he was a 2nd round pick back when he was drafted. Fantastic. If he doesn't, well, that was always the likely outcome. But again, you just need 1 or 2 of those guys to exceed expectation. And it's happened before. Like nobody thought Mark Stahl was going to be what Mark Stahl was for the last 2 years at that point in his career. No,
he has been the best example of use a player correctly based on what they can do, and you can maximize what they can do for your team.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's more of the same trend as to what this offseason has been. And it's going to be refreshing when a freak injury like the Pysyk injury happens, but in mid-season and going, oh, I don't even know who the hell they're going to call up. Oh, I don't even know who the hell they're going to put in the lineup. What are we doing here? They waived Danny DeKeyser and then he had to play a week later because that's what they had.
Yeah.
So that won't be the same issue this year.
Fingers crossed. Okay. There's a lot to come on Red Wings roster, I'm sure, but for now, let's keep Draper's interview the feature of this episode, and let's jump into overtime. I always get the link wrong. Patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. If you want to join the WWP, patron or Patreon and join the Dub Dub Club, more importantly, you get access to great things like the Discord, which is always a lot of fun, if not a little wild. The Patreon exclusive overtimes that we record right after we record the main episode and are posted, those are a little bit more loosey goosey. Evan has been known to go off the rails on those, and a lot of other fun stuff. So if you want to know what patrons allow us to do, they allow us to do things like get interviews with Kris Draper and host Winged Wheel podcast nights in partnership with the Detroit Red Wings, and support the Jamie Daniels Foundation and improve our studio equipment and things like that. So really appreciate all of our patrons. All right, let's start with a question here. I thought this was a fun one from Tyler C., who says, Kadri and Klingberg are going to the Islanders, right? Lou is just sitting with the signed contracts in his drawer.
Like, we joke, but
I could believe it on Kadri.
On Kadri, I could. Klingberg, with the news of what Klingberg did today, I'll say that's unlikely.
Switched his agents, right?
Yeah, he's changed agencies because I guess the report from, I think it was Renaud Lavoie, was saying he was looking for an 7x6 entering free agency, which I don't think was ever realistic, but he sure as hell seemed to think it was, and maybe his agent told him it was. And
I'm sure his agent was telling him, like, that's what you should go for.
And now all of a sudden that didn't come close. Teams went on to other options, and he's probably taking a significant hit on what he could have got had he maybe been a little more realistic out of the gate.
Yeah, I bet he's looking at teams like the Red Wings and saying, they gave Ben Chiarot more term and more money maybe than they wanted to, and I asked for way more. If I settled with just a little bit more than market value, I might have been able to take Ben Chiarot. Those are wildly different players.
Yeah.
But as an example, I can see why he would not be happy there.
How many teams have capped themselves out since free agency to now?
That's how it goes, right? Like,
there's a lot of teams that could have afforded John Klingberg then that definitely can't now.
Think of it this way. It's Black Friday. You have $1,000, $100, however much. And this is like old school before, say, Black Friday, Boxing Day, those things kind of got ruined by shitty sales and all online. And you're at Best Buy at 6 a.m. Are you waiting until 10 a.m., 1 p.m. to buy your stuff? Or are you rushing to grab those heavily discounted or like premium items right away because they're going to be flying off the shelves? Right? You got to move fast, and teams don't sit on their cap space if they're trying to compete. If they're like the Red Wings, then yeah, you have a little bit more breathing room, but teams like the Red Wings are less plentiful. Teams are more want to spend to the cap, or do so without really thinking properly about it. Question here from Shatna, who says, yes or no, Wings alternate jersey, including the Pistons teal. Look, I'm a big fan of the teal. I love that I'm good on the teal. I think the white version of the teal jersey is the best. I'm more big on the logo. I love the horse logo. Shitty as it might be, I don't care. No to a Red Wings jersey with teal though. No. If we're going wild colors, we're going purple, right?
Oh God, the octopus jersey.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Oh, did I tell you someone pointed out this week about the Red Wings logo, something that I had never noticed in my entire damn life?
Okay, I saw you post that, and I don't know how you didn't notice that. You didn't notice that the wheel was moving from right to left?
No, I noticed that. I didn't realize it was two wings.
You didn't know it was two wings? I
never noticed that it was two wings. I just thought it was a good design before I noticed that the top thicker line was actually... Like, as soon as I got pointed out, I'm like, oh yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I get that now. But in the meantime, it just looked like it was just a clean, streamlined design.
No, it's two wings.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, okay. I get that. That makes way more sense.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I wasn't the only one. Like, a lot of people were like, I hate that you made me see this.
Well, I think it's cool. I think that's great.
I like it. Yeah. But I never actually pieced that together.
Yeah, for anyone wondering, the two solid lines at the top of the wings, the top solid line that curves, like the same contour, is that's the back wing.
That's the back of the second wing, yeah.
It's a little bit...
Because the top of the front wing is designed almost exactly the same. I just kind of, like I said, pieced it together.
That's really funny.
But yeah, and then I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
That's some me stuff right there.
Yeah.
You're just so like,
it's something you look at so often that like you never bother to look at the detail of it like after a while. And because I started cheering for the Wings when I was like, I don't know, 5 years old, as an adult, I never actually took like a really hard, close look at the logo because it was the Red Wings logo. It's always been the Red Wings logo. It's never changed. Why am I going to examine it now? You know what I mean? So,
I have drawn that logo so many times as a kid.
oh, as a kid. Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like I know it. Okay. There's been a fly in here for the past few days and I'm not convinced that it isn't Evan. Because there's never like like bugs in here flying around, and like I was interviewing Draper and it was getting in my face and I had to like play it cool and try to blow it away. Anyways, question here from Jeremy Dahl says, "Hey boys who make the noise, it's so nice that Evan reads over the patron names every night before he goes to bed, rubbing his hand over a glass case of names. That's why you guys are the best, because you care so much." Last week, with you explaining last change was very helpful. Could you guys also give me a quick lesson on the cycle and the rush? You use those terms a lot, and I think I have it sussed out, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Easiest way to describe it is north, south, and east, west. So the rush is transitioning from D zone to neutral zone into the offensive zone. So if you are transporting that puck in a relatively straight line, you know, obviously zigzag for passes and juking defenders, to get that puck to the net, that's the rush. That is, you are rushing it towards the opponent's goal, towards the opponent's end, whatever you want to call it. So if someone comes down the wing, burns a defenseman and wide and shoots and scores, that's scoring a goal off the rush. Cycle is when you actually have possession in the offensive zone, but the puck is not going directly to the net. You're working it around the boards. You're passing it. You're, winning battles in the corner. So you have a zone or whatever you want to call it set up in the offensive zone. And generally a cycle will work in like a circular fashion where you pass it around behind the net to that, up to the point, something like that. Hence the name cycle. Mm-hmm. But cycle has evolved to basically mean just holding possession and, tossing the puck around in the offensive zone to try and create a chance that way. So, hence moving the puck from east to west, from the left side of the ice to the right side of the ice, and vice versa, back and forth, trying to create something. So that's about the simplest way I can explain it.
All right. A couple more here. One from Michael Rasmussen's Offensive Upside says, "What does the future look like for Jared McIsaac? And do you think he's been passed on the depth chart by Johansson, Vero, Sebrango, and Edvinsson at this point?" I'm going to jump in quickly here. I don't think it could be confidently said that Vero and Sebrango have passed him, but I think this year is going to definitely determine where he stands relative to those two. Edvinsson and Johansson are ahead of him though.
Because I am this year, just based on roster construction in Grand Rapids, might say a lot. Because if I'm not mistaken, Johansson and Vero are coming to North America with McIsaac and Sebrango already there. So that's 4 left D penciled in for Grand Rapids. And that's assuming Edvinsson makes the Red Wings.
Yeah.
So you could see maybe some trades with these guys, some shuffling, maybe a couple guys. So Vero comes over and does not get a spot in Grand Rapids, but McIsaac does. That's probably a pretty good indication of where the team stands. I think in terms of ceiling, Johansson and Wallander are pretty comfortably ahead of McIsaac. Mm-hmm. In terms of depth defenseman and likelihood of getting a spot, I think between Vero, Sebrango, and McIsaac, it's a toss-up right now. I'd probably give the advantage to Sebrango just because he's shown the most and is, I think, the youngest of that group, at least same age as Vero. So, yeah, this year is going to determine a lot for a lot of prospects in the Red Wings organization. It's a unique year where there's a lot of make or break years at the same time.
And last one here is from Sam W. Says, "Hello. Many of us are sleeping on just how good Shai Buium might be."
Oh, also him.
Yes. Shai Buium is a player who is probably an enigma to a lot of people still, just by nature of him being that prototypical Red Wings second round pick where they pick him and a lot of people are going, who? But remember back to our draft review on Shai Buium, that is a project pick, not in the sense that he's like a 7th rounder or a late round pick like Soderblom, where he has to be a unicorn, but a lot of really raw but good tools that need refining. So I think as we see Shai Buium develop and as he gets closer to potentially making the Red Wings, we'll have a much better image of who he is. And yeah, I have to agree. A lot of people exclude him from their potential future Red Wings lists, and they really shouldn't be. Also, why do so many, and I think this applies to me, dislike player comps? NHL organizations use them. Comps are standard across many industries, especially when projecting future value. At the very least, it helps in terms of evaluating prospects' likelihood to reach potential and contextualizes their skill set. A more specific, detailed way of indicating top-line center or stay-at-home defenseman, etc. Not every player is a unicorn. I think they're helpful when thoughtful. Thanks. I think that last line is it, when thoughtful.
I think it's because either the people explaining the comps do a poor job of explaining the comp, or the people listening or reading to it misunderstand what the comp means. So if I sit here and tell you, give me any random Red Wings prospect.
Yeah, Berggren.
So if I say I see a lot of Nikolai Ehlers and Jonathan Berggren, it doesn't mean I think Jonathan Berggren is going to be as good as Nikolai Ehlers. And it doesn't even mean I think they have super similar skill sets. It's, I see their role being similar, and there are characteristics of their game that are similar, where they're smaller guys who can do a lot of work on the perimeter, good passers, stuff. You know what I mean? Now, is that a perfect comparison? No. Is there probably a better comparison than Ehlers? Sure. But if I tell you the way I see Berggren being successful in the NHL is by playing like a Nikolai Ehlers, I'm more talking role and strengths.
It's almost like a symptom of, you grab the most notable players that you think people will understand and be able to connect with. And by virtue, those are going to be great players, but it's hard to do that. And then also ask people to say, detach what you just said, Brad. You're not asking him to be Nikolai Ehlers or expecting him to be. Detach that from the skills. And I don't think that's anyone's fault. Yeah. And that's why I inherently dislike them, because I don't think it's the listener's fault. I think it's the onus is on us. For example, if we're doing comparisons to give you that comp and explain that, but at the same time, so much of it is lost. And we also try to be careful when setting expectations, right? Like, I think what you said right now, Brad, is very fair about Jonathan Berggren, but I'm never making that player comp without the world of qualifiers that you gave ahead of time, because like you said, Sam, it needs to be thoughtful.
Yeah. Because one that we used, and I think I used specifically from this previous draft, if I just said the comp without any context, it would sound insane. It's like, oh, I see a lot of Nikita Kucherov and Dmitry Buchelnikov.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is a fair statement. And I don't think Buchelnikov is ever going to be 75% of the player Nikita Kucherov is, but they're super creative playmakers who aren't the fleetest of foot, who have absolute bombs for a shot and play primarily on the perimeter. So I can compare Kucherov to Buchelnikov, but if I don't elaborate, it's an absurd statement.
Man, I have to tell you, I saw that clip again of what Kucherov did to Ekblad in the playoffs. And as a former defenseman, I didn't sleep well that night, but that was just so nasty. The way he looked him off. It was so textbook. You have to know Ekblad was kicking himself for biting that hard. It's kind of like a made you flinch, but you flinch way too hard when you absolutely shouldn't have. But, oh, God, that was so filthy. So, yeah, if Buchelnikov ends up being 75% of Kuch, I'll be thrilled.
Yeah, and that's like Buchelnikov's best case scenario.
Yeah. Okay, we got to wrap here. We'll be back with you for our usual weekend episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. To Kris Draper, thank you so much for the incredible interview. We're very, very excited to have him back. Folks, we have news coming as we progress into our off season soon. More on that to come. There's a lot of stuff that we're working on just because it's approaching an off season in terms of maybe going down to one a week doesn't mean we're working any less hard. We're preparing for next year already. Brad and I probably spent half an hour before recording today just going over literal logistics. So stay tuned for that. Some hopeful good news coming on those fronts soon. We'd like to thank all of you who have listened, new listeners and old, all of you who have joined our Patreon, our returning patrons, anyone who's given us ratings recently on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. They really do help. So if you're able to do that, that is a wonderful way to support the show. the FanDuel Sportsbook for supporting, and of course, all of our patrons and our name level sponsors. Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Ake Fur, the Stay Fresh Cheese Bag, Nick Perks, Brett Bailey, Terry Driver of the number 69 Crying Ryan Hannah's Banana Slam at Jamathon, BJ Johnston, Matthew M. Rice, Ben Hurd, Brandon M., Carl Brutana Nanolewski, Chimmy, Citizen High Five, Connor Scovey, Coyote Season Tickets in Tempe, Craig Kibble, Derek Enstam, DJ Denton, Evans Farmer Tan, Give Blood Fight Probert, Greach, Hassam Al-Qassem. I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even Oli Mata. I'd leave my wife for cider, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Kalen Wood, King Tone, Kyle Hashman, Marcus, Matt McKay, my impressive package LMAO, Nicholas Fritz, R.A., Ryan Hubbard, Scott Martin, Zachary Rogers, Sam Bankson, Stay Fresh Cheese Bags, Adam, now I finish better than Ernie, Antonio Gracias, Babe Landeskog is a Stanley Cup champion, Ben Barron, Brian Vasha, Connor Leighton, Darren Ficcarelli, Dave W., Evans Bankrupt Parking Garage, Dungeon Master of Puppets, Evans Bingo Card, Griffey Boy, It Hurts When I Puce Suitor, Jack the Bassist, James Laporte, Jeremiah Dobo, Jeremy Brocker, JM Rhapsody, John Evans, Josh Yelton, Justin and the Angry Mob, Karko Masper, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Logan Burgos, Matt Keeler, Matt S., Maximilian Cheesebags, Melissa Erickson, Papa Woody, Puck Norris, Revi DeLuca, Rufus, Thick Rick, Trevor Pevavar, and Zach McCann, a driving range superstar. Thank you all so much. I'm going to try to kill this fly.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.